Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Robert Phoenix, broadcast to you live from Austin, Texas. We're back. We are back in the world headquarters of Free Association Radio with the good old 15 minutes of flame. Wish I had my sound effects going. I'd punch those up right now. What's happening out there? We are in the turn of seasons, the veil between this world and others. So thin, the membrane of dimensional awareness. A filament, a thread, almost like a very fine sheet of rice paper, is all around us right now, especially because we are still in that Piscean moon. I believe it's at 20 degrees right about now. And by the time tonight hits, we might, I have to do my lunar calculations, my lunations. It's about 10 degrees out. We might be into a void of course pattern with the moon tonight. So if you have kids out there and they're trick-or-treating, that void of course between Pisces and Eris, it's a little funky, if you know what I mean. It's a funky kind of moon. Speaking of funky, strange, high strange coming out of the Carrie Cassidy camp. This information was passed on to me by one of my sources. I mean, it's not anything hidden. But Carrie Cassidy's been interviewing some people in Michigan who are talking about this bizarre phenomenon that's happening, where mothers and daughters usually are pulling into places like Target and Walmart. And they get out of their cars and they're surrounded by these really high-end vehicles and literally forced into them, and they disappear. Now, I have not been following this all that much. It just came across my screen, and I have mixed feelings about Carrie Cassidy in general. But it's clearly a very bizarre phenomenon. And Halloween, of course, sort of brings up and conjures those images of strange happenings and events. This is a ritual eve, a ritual night. Remember that. It is, in as much as the veils are thin, the energies are used in many ways to drive those deeper, darker psychic forces that have a grip on this planet, or at least are trying to maintain their grip. Which brings us to the topic of the day, which is chaos. Chaos. Because we are living right smack dab in the middle of chaos. And I'm here to tell you it's a good thing. Chaos is not bad. I grew up with chaos. I learned how to navigate through chaos. Stability has been my challenge in life in many ways. Chaos I'm good with. Give me chaos and the ability to improvise, and I'm in my medium. But we are living in chaos. And it's only going to get stranger and weirder as a lot of the stuff on this plane, this third dimensional reality, begins to shake out. I mean, just think about this now. Let's just check some boxes here. All right. We're still living in the aftermath of Las Vegas. And there's this huge roaring debate about whether anybody died there. And there are people that died. I'm sorry. There are people that died. There are people who got wounded. I don't know the actual count. I know people that know people. I know them for a fact. That people were wounded at the very least. And I don't know anybody that died in Vegas. But this is, there are people there are things that happen to them. And to try to sculpt this into something where nobody died, I think it's missing the boat. You're just missing the boat on this. It's another divide and conquer strategy at a micro level. The divide and conquer strategy has to do with people that are invested in the truth and are trying to untangle this thing. And by the way, the Vegas event was a big operation. They'd been planning that for a while. That was not something that just kind of popped up. It wasn't just a gun deal gone bad with Stephen Paddock. I don't even think Stephen Paddock is in that room. I don't even think that guy is Stephen Paddock. And Campos may have been there. He might have been there. I don't know. I mean, the guy was employed for a month. He wasn't even cleared to be the security guy at that level. So the whole thing with Vegas is that we've got to be able to at least agree on the fact that there is an end game here, and the end game isn't dependent upon who died or not. If you want to expose something as being fake and being manipulated, that I guess that has some merit. I think you can take an either-or approach. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I don't think you have to say, well, nobody died, it's all fake. And I don't think you have to say, you're completely wrong, people died, people got injured, these things happened. I think you can combine the two because clearly we have seen some hybridization of these events that have taken place. And Vegas, clearly, I believe, is one of them. Okay, so that's just one level of the chaos. You've got, again, I talk about this stuff on a kind of a daily basis because I want to keep this fresh. We just don't want to turn away, walk our backs, and go on to the next thing, go on to the next thing, go on to the next thing. I was talking with one of my listeners yesterday who lives in Northern California. Her place is actually okay, and her neighbors and her neighborhoods aren't okay. They look like war zones, and she was telling me that people are starting to talk about things that they had never thought that they would talk about before. How about that? People are actually talking about energy-directed weapons, laser-directed weapons. People are comparing notes about the anomalies that occurred before the fire and looking at the anomalies after the fire. You know, the YouTube videos are being passed around, and people are starting to begin to reorient their thinking. And the reason why is because they're having to deal with a level of chaos in their lives that they are probably not or have not been equipped to deal with. And so we have these events that crater us. And they can serve to do a couple of different things. One is that it can wake us up. Or two, it'll send us deeper into a fetal position in our lives. You got two choices. You either recede and hang on ever more tightly to the illusion, or you crack open and you begin to take your red pill like a like a grown-up and then begin to see the world in very different terms. So this is the latest that's happening in Northern California. People are starting to crack open their chrysalis and they're beginning to talk. They're beginning to think about and discuss things that they thought they would never ever discuss or have to deal with. And this is the time that we're living in now. This is a time of tremendous awakening, and sometimes awakening can be very painful, extremely painful. Let's say, for instance, and we're going to jump into the Kevin Spacey thing now. Let's say, for instance, you've loved Kevin Spacey as an actor. You think he's great. You've loved him in House of Cards. You've loved him in The Usual Suspects. You've loved him in any number of movies. And all of a sudden now, not only does he come, look, if he's gay, so what? Whatever. People are gay. They're gay. It's just the way it is. And they have sexual preferences and lifestyles. And I am not here to lord over what they do amongst two consenting adults. That's up to them. It's up to them, the other person, in whatever source of creation they plug into. Okay? I am not here to judge that. That's how I roll. If that's what you are, what you want to do, how you live, more power to you. Okay? Just like I would love to be afforded the same kind of leeway in my life in terms of how I live it and what I talk about and what I share. It's kind of an unspoken agreement I have with the universe in a lot of ways. Doesn't always work, but that's how I frame it. But now Kevin Spacey as it comes out through Anthony Rapp, that he was aggressive and went after him when he was a 14-year-old kid, invited to a party. Okay, so I have a couple thoughts about this. First of all, we're Anthony Rapp's parents, and I'm not standing up. I am not standing up for Kevin Spacey and his ability or his desire to get it on with a 14-year-old kid. In fact, I find that rather deplorable. But we're Anthony Rapp's parents. My son is going to be turning 14 in March. And I couldn't even imagine my son being at a party with somebody like Kevin Spacey. I don't know how that happens. I don't understand that. That's a different topic of discussion. So it comes out now in the wake of all these other allegations, and we've seen them now from Harvey Weinstein to Adam Sandler, George H.W. Bush. They're all in there, right? They're in the perp tank. Anyway, so it comes out that Spacey, stepped outside the lines with a 14-year-old kid about 30 years ago. And it has ramifications. But then what Spacey does is he then says, well, I'm going to use this platform to come out, and I talked about this yesterday, to tell everybody that I'm gay. I mean, talk about covering one's ass. I mean, this is insane. It's completely insane. So now if you've been somebody who's into Kevin Spacey and you like his work, right? What was that movie, Beautiful Life? Was that the one he won the Oscar for? So you like his work, and now all of a sudden you see him as not just a fallible human, but more than a fallible human. Somebody who is using this kind of gay defense to get away from the fact that he did something not so great to a 14-year-old kid 30 years ago. And if that's just not a one-off, right? None of this is a one-off. So if that happened with Anthony Rapp, be pretty clear, pretty certain that it likely happened with other people. Kevin Spacey just didn't get a hair up his butt one night and say, hey, I'm going to go walk on the wild side. I'm going to go try this with a 14-year-old kid. I don't think it works that way. But you see, what happens now is that there's a new level of chaos that comes into the maelstrom of the mainstream. People who are into Kevin Spacey, and I've never really liked Kevin Spacey, to be honest with you. I thought he was a smug son of a bitch. Anyway, the thing that happens now is that people have to set, who liked him, who liked his work, and maybe because he was politically aligned in a certain direction, they even like that part. Well, guess what? Now they have got to reevaluate that, right? So when the lesser gods fall, because these people are lesser gods, and if we have attached our consciousness and our attention to the lesser gods, what happens? Our universe comes tumbling down. And so we have to reorient ourselves in terms of what we believe in, who we believe in, and why we believe in them. Or it, correct? This is kind of a major piece. It's a major piece around all of this. This is not insignificant. This is one added level of chaos. And it's not bad. I'm telling you, it is not bad. Don't fret, okay? Do not fret. Even though we may actually be in a time of significant judgment. And I'm not adverse to kind of wrapping my head around that. Because the two are not mutually exclusive. I mean, we could be in a significant time of judgment where these revelations are coming out and people are having to kind of deal with this at a Saturnian, Sagittarian level. Now that said, we're all human and we've all erred. You know, we've all done things in our lives that if we had to do all over again, likely, guess what? We would. Because that's the nature of who we are. We're imperfect. We're imperfect. And so while Kevin Spacey has to do the perp walk, at the same time, and this is what's really interesting, because I kind of cracked this code when I was looking at the Harvey Weinstein chart. At the 29th degree of Pisces, which is the final degree of the zodiac, and that's where Harvey Weinstein has his son, is that is the final degree. That is it. That is it. And it's a prismatic dispersion of light. It is where the self gets shot through a prism and becomes refracted and returns to the source of light itself in various kinds of fractal dimension. So in a lot of ways, right? In a lot of ways, this is kind of where, we're not there astrologically, but we will be soon with Chiron at 29 Pisces, which will happen next year, which is the spiritual crisis of Pisces at the 29th degree. That'll be a very interesting time for the world, by the way, when Chiron hits Pisces at 29 degrees. That to me is the signal of a spiritual crisis, and then it goes into zero Eris, and that's going to be a very, very powerful 7-year stretch, and we're seeing right now sort of the groundwork being laid for that Piscean Eris transition in a lot of ways. What's going on with quote unquote men? So we're in a time now where, look at Kevin Spacey. I mean, this is a significant piece because it's adding to the chaos. It's adding to the disassembling of some form of structure and some form of, to some degree, idolatry, right? The lesser gods will fall. The lesser gods will all fall before, before the one great source of creation. This is the way it is. Now, some people may get some real schadenfreude around Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein and all these other people. And, like, aha, see, look, I do it all the time. He was a queer bastard, or whatever that is, right? And I will go on the record and say that is not really the best position to take. Okay, and now I'm all for disassembling these structures. That's an important kind of moment for us. It's a big deal, right? And we're part of it, and it's just starting. It's really just starting. Wait till we get into 2018 and the whole money trip. That's going to send people running for the rafters. People are not going to know what the hell's going on with money. We're going to be in a major flux/crisis with the whole money scene. You see what Japan did. Japan decided that they were going to become a haven for cryptocurrencies. Boy, they're smart. They're smart. Instead of trying to get in there and force them to crack down on the cryptos, what are they doing? They're saying, hey, come on over here. We'll take care of you. As long as you're legit, we'll take care of you. And so we're going to see all these different countries and the IMF and the World Bank and the United States, as kind of one of the lead dogs, try to wrap their head around the crypto thing and figure out ways to incorporate it, have their own, enforce it, whatever. This is the cryptocurrency is a game changer. There are pros, there are cons to it. We can do a whole show on cryptos. I'd like to do that at some point. Do a whole show on cryptos. Anyway, but just wait. You're going to have the petro yuan. You got all these things going on with money. And and money gets into that fundamental Taurian part of our charts and our lives. Wherever Taurus shows up, that's where you're going to have to deal with it. That's where you're going to have to deal with the chaos. Uranus brings chaos. That's what it does. It brings chaos, disruption, disorder in its own way, but it also offers creative potential. There's creative potential. So we've got to look in some ways beyond the kind of myopic version of reality where we're dealing with these electronic currencies or the cryptos. We've got to find a way in which we can use them as a creative edge. Now, they may try to fold it in and become the currency of the beast and connect it to the chip. That's all possible. It's all possible. because money is going to go away. We're rapidly headed towards that. Whether it's going to be a card, whether it's going to be a biometric scan, whether it's going to be a chip, and there's going to be creative ways to live outside of that. Let's say, for instance, you've got competing cryptos, and you've got one kind of major unified, monetary system, which you're desperately trying to do. The whole game with North Korea, Iran, the whole thing with Iran is perverse. It's just absolutely perverse. And Trump playing the errand boy for his buddies over in the Middle East, and Benjamin Netanyahu, because they just want to take out Iran. Saudi Arabia wants to take out Iran too, even though they're both Muslim countries, theoretically. Although if you get into the House of Saud, you'll realize where they originate from and who they really are. Theoretically, they're both Muslim countries, so one would think that they would stand together, correct? But no, all of a sudden, hey, Israel and Saudi Arabia have the same. They have the same outlook. They have the same agenda. They're on the same page when it comes to Iran. Hey, imagine that. So they want to flip Iran. They want to flip North Korea. They want to flip Syria. We know this. The peace with Catalan in Madrid, more chaos. Eris, it is an exoplanet. It actually has a unique orbit. I should do more work with Eris astrologically. I think that's going to be my new fetish, Eris, which is named after the goddess of chaos and discordia. Look at what's happening with Catalan. They said, "Hey, we're out," and they're the richest part of Spain, by the way. They're out. And what is Madrid and the Castilian side of Spain doing? They're sending troops into Catalan. They're arresting people. Now we're seeing the real boot of fascism come down on the Catalonian people. And, I mean, that's terrible. But they spoke. They said, hey, we want out. We've held an election. We want out. And then what happens with the Basque separatists? That if they that is a threat to the EU. That is a threat to this whole idea that we're going to have this global currency, and we may see more of that take place, which could slow the fast track down. And they've got to speed this thing up. They've got 3 years to get it into place. That's their timetable. Saturn and Aquarius, and what we'll see through Saturn and Capricorn is kind of what we'll see with Saturn and Capricorn is the hard boot. The hard boot of the law. The administration of the law. And it could go both ways here. We're talking about some other examples. That's what's coming with Saturn and Capricorn. More chaos. Tony Podesta steps down from the Podesta group because of the investigation by Mueller. How wild is this? Okay, so he sets out, well, really what they did is they decided, hey, we're going to take on, we're going to create all of this. And by the way, the foresight and the planning that is a part of what they're doing is significant. I would bet that they knew that Trump was going to win, not based on the fact that there's any kind of inside knowledge that somebody, with a pointy hat somewhere was sticking a crooked finger in Trump's direction and pointing at him as the one. Now, I don't think that that's the case. I think that they had real metrics. I think that they have advanced computer modeling systems, and they were hedging their bets because they had to somehow figure out and compute all the variables, and there were some major variables in place with Trump. On one model, they probably saw Hillary winning with one model. But on another model, with the variables that they take into account, they said, well, there's probably a pretty good chance that Trump might win this thing. So we've got to hedge our bets. We've got to have a plan moving forward so that we can begin to not only take him down, but to take down this rising tide of populism. Now, they're stupid because they could have just piggybacked on Bernie Sanders who would have been their version of the populist candidate, and I think Sanders would have won. I think Sanders could have beaten Trump. But Sanders was not part of their plan. He wasn't part of their plan. And Sanders was ultimately going to be a threat if he was going to live up to his Bernie Sanders proclamations. He was going to be a threat to Wall Street. And they don't like that. Hillary Clinton's Wall Street's best friend. Best buddy, best pal. And they don't want that. They want to keep the money flowing. Anyway, so now here we have Tony Podesta stepping away from the Podesta group. The Podesta group is really Tony and John. And because Tony's under investigation. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Now, here you go. If you are, again, a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, progressive, liberal, who is just going to throw down with anything Hillary and anything on that side of the ledger sheet, and all of a sudden you see Tony Podesta being investigated by Mueller, you're thinking, what the hell is going on here? Essentially, you're feeling like, wow, this is great, man. They got Manafort. They got this Papadopoulos guy who looks like a total shill. But they're also going after Tony Podesta. How does that not throw a little chaos wrench into your operating system? You've got to factor that away, or you've got to turn your head away and you go deeper into denial, or you begin to think, wow, this is very bizarre. You see, chaos is here to wake us up. It's not an easy thing sometimes, but it's here to wake us up. And it's here for us to deal with our past, deal with our present, and the future will be the future. It is what it is, right? You can plan for the future, you can have goals, you can have aspirations. Saturn and Capricorn will demand it in some ways, that you plan for a future based on variables that are here and now. That's not a bad thing to do. But it's also about the present. Capricorn Kronos rules time. Time. So it's not just the past, it's not just the future, because Saturn looks out to the rest of the solar system, theoretically, and the rest of the galaxy. It's also about the present. It's also about the present. So here we are right now in the present, where everything is snap, crackling, and popping all around us. I want to read you some interesting information. This has to do with Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton. This is fascinating here. Remember, the New York PD, the NYPD, has all those files in their possession, the ones that they've copied, no doubt, and then passed on to the FBI. So this is from Victorious Libertas. This is from today. I'm going to just read this to you here. This is interesting. This is what they've been able to call. They're very specific numbers here. Very specific numbers. Very specific players. So here we go. This is from an insider who's popped up, I believe, on Reddit, if I'm not mistaken. So let's just get into this. All of the following information was given to us by our insiders who have specific first-hand knowledge of the Hillary email scandal. It seems that things are about to heat up. We are told that of the 662,871 emails lifted from Weiner's computer, 11,112 emails are Huma and pay-to-play, including Saudis and Israelis. Meaning Huma was the one Hillary used to communicate with foreign leaders via email for inside information and deals via Huma's computer. So Huma was the bag lady. That's what she was. It has been established through many avenues, but mainly through WikiLeaks, that the Clinton Foundation was just a farce set up in order to perform pay-to-play games with multiple entities, including foreign nations. This is true. It's in there. It's in the WikiLeaks. Pay-to-play nations include Israel, Saudis, Turks, Qatar, Kazakhstan, and the Ukraine. Kazakhstan is one of the uranium plays, by the way. Furthermore, we are told by one of our insiders that one email unequivocally confirms ISIS was created by CIA and Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, which also goes by the name of ISIS, with help from Joe Lieberman, John McCain, and Lindsey Graham. Why does that not surprise me? There's pictures of John McCain with ISIS, for Christ's sake. Pardon me, took the Lord's name in vain. An NYPD insider said the content they viewed did include State Department top secret emails. One file was called Life Insurance. The second email was titled DNC Nuclear Arsenal. Now here's where it gets down and dirty and salacious. A third file, I'm sure definitely does not, Hillary definitely does not want released, was a file labeled Intimates. According to this NYPD insider, this file contained X-rated photos with Hillary, Huma and Hillary with a teenager. This has been circulating on the internet for a while now, that they had a threesome with a teenager, the two of them. NYPD detectives were sickened by what they saw. According to our insider, they have threatened FBI field agents that they would leak the information if the FBI did not step up and take off the kid gloves. At that point, 13 of the FBI agents in New York City are also threatening to leak information. As you can imagine, the scandal has the entire Obama administration in full panic. We were told there are emails that could send Loretta Lynch to prison, as well as Bill and Hillary. The Twitter post to the right of our sources verifies it is all true. So this Twitter source, let's see, it says here, Carmen Katz, my NYPD source said as much. It's much more vile and serious than classified material on Weiner's device. The email detailed the trips made by Weiner, Bill and Hillary on their pedophile billionaire friend's plane, the Lolita Express. Yep, Hillary has a well-documented predilection for underage girls, and Mr. Weiner just could not bear to see those details deleted. We're talking an international child enslavement and sex ring. Not even Hillary's most ardent supporters and defenders will be able to excuse this. If this is indeed true, and most signs point to it actually being true, if you go back and just read Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien, it is one of the most difficult reads you'll ever have to go through because of what Kathy and her daughter are subjected to. But there's a lot of dirt in that book. And Hillary Clinton shows up in that book, and how she shows up in the book completely conforms to what is being shared here on the website, which is victoriouslibertas.com. And if that is the case, then we're dealing with a whole new level of chaos. This is next level chaos. This is what's going to happen. You know, the people are being introduced to this now. And it's very uncomfortable for people. It's very, very uncomfortable. People that used to like the NFL. People that thought the NFL was great. People that, spent their Sundays escaping from the world. You can't escape anymore. The escape hatch is closed. This is closed. You've just got to deal with things. Although the World Series has been fun, I have to admit, it's been a really great World Series. Crazy chaos. 13-12, right? Isn't that what it was? 13-12. The other night, or 12-11. It was either 13-12 or 12-11. I forget. But man, they couldn't get anybody out. That is usually, a high-scoring game for baseball is like 6-4. Man, you get 6-4, and you've seen some offense. Not the other night in Minute Maid Park. No. And people that normally do really well, like Kenley Jansen. I mean, the guy was just a punching bag in the late innings. This guy's he was the best reliever in baseball in the National League. He comes in and the other team doesn't hit the ball. And what happens? The Astros just beat them up and they win the game in extra innings. More chaos. How about Bob McNair, speaking of Houston? First of all, I'm not a Bob McNair guy. I mean, I think he's, I don't know. I'm not from Houston. I don't know. I don't have a lot of, Houston Texan connections. But Bob McNair, he basically fired one of his coaches because he wouldn't play his quarterback. That's the extent I know about Bob McNair. He fired a coach because McNair wanted this guy Case Keenum, who went to the University of Houston, was on the Texans. He loved Case Keenum, wanted Case Keenum to play. And Gary Kubiak, the coach at that time, he wanted to win the game. Imagine that. So he played this guy Matt Schaub, and Bob McNair didn't like it, and so Gary Kubiak, who's a really good coach, got sacked. He was done. He was gone like 3 or 4 days after that. That's the only thing I know about Bob McNair, but I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that he just fired one of his coaches, his coach, his main coach, his head coach, because guess what? The coach wanted to win the game and not play the local kid and Bob McNair's fetish. Comes out during these meetings in New York that McNair, in response to what's going on with the NFL and the chaos in the NFL, that he did not want the prisoners to run the prison. That didn't go over too well. And I understand what he was trying to say. It's like we have a system. We have a system, and the system has a hierarchy. There are people that are in charge of the hierarchy. They oversee the system. And there are people below, the administrators of the system. And if we give them the power to run the system, then we're going to be in trouble. Well, I think they're already in trouble. And and the whole thing with the NFL blows my mind. Because these guys make a lot of money. Look, there is a huge amount of risk in this game. Don't get me wrong. It is not like you just go out and you play and you cash a check and you send money, back home to your mama or whatever, right? There's a huge amount of risk. I was watching the Chicago Bears game a little bit on Sunday, and there's a player for the Chicago Bears, Zach Miller, who caught a ball in the end zone, and I watched his leg collapse in about 3 different directions. It was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen on a football field. And I actually watched Joe Theismann have his leg broken on Monday Night Football and have his one of his bones actually protrude through his skin. And Zach Miller was in jeopardy of losing his leg. That's how bad it was. He'll never play football again. He dislocated his entire knee. Had to have vascular surgery. I mean, can you imagine the pain? So this is not a sport where the perks come without a price. They come with a price, a huge price. But the perks are still there. You still get to make a lot of money. And a lot of the guys that play the sport, a lot of them either leave school early, or I'm going to share with you one of the dirty facts that a lot of the guys in the sport are undereducated, and many of them are unprepared to deal with life. Some of them actually blow their fortunes. Like Vince Young here in Texas. Vince Young, great college football player. Great college football player. And he had a huge signing bonus. He made a lot of money initially with the the Tennessee Titans. And all of a sudden he collapsed. He couldn't figure out how to take his game to the next level. But he spent money like it was going out of style. He got one of the stories about Vince Young was he decided he was going to take about 40 of his best friends to a party somewhere, and they had to take a plane. And so what he did is he bought them all seats on a Southwest plane so they could all stay together on a Southwest plane. Probably, 40 guys at, probably about $400 a ticket. I mean, he did stuff like this all the time. He ran out of money. Anyway, I'm kind of going off the path here. But even that thing with McNair is chaos, right? It's total chaos. It was a bad metaphor. I think what he was saying is that, look, we give the power over to the players, and we take orders from them. Everything's been inverted. It's been turned upside down. And it's not going to work. And in that structure, I would agree with him. It's not going to work. It will not work. Maybe some other structures, it might work. I'm actually a fan of enlightened anarchy, by the way, if that exists. But I'm a fan of enlightened anarchy. I'll give you another example of chaos. Look at what's happening with the NBA right now. Strange stuff. Really bizarre stuff. There are fights on the court. There are fights at practice. Gordon Hayward from the Boston Celtics. This guy that the Boston Celtics spent a huge amount of money for. First night of the season, breaks his leg. Stephen Curry, the golden child, the poster boy for the NBA, And I actually like Steph Curry. I think he's kind of going off the path a little bit. But like the second night of the season, he throws his mouth guard at a ref and gets fined $50,000. The other day, the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is really a trip. I've been wanting to talk about this. The Oklahoma City Thunder were flying at about 30,000 feet. And then something hit the plane. And they dropped. I think there are 40,000, and I think they dropped 30,000 feet after this thing hit the plane. Now, they said that it was a bird. How the hell is a bird flying at 40,000 feet? I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous. You know, maybe a bird's flying at, 3,000 feet? At the highest? That's pretty high, 3,000 feet. You know, you're in soaring hawk and eagle territory at that point. Maybe even lower than that. I don't know. 3,000 feet is pretty high. Anyway, 40,000 feet though. And then I saw the pictures of the plane. And you should see the nose cone of the plane. It has a massive indentation in the nose cone. Now there are people that say that it was hit by a UFO. Maybe it got caught with a particle beam weapon. But you look at the nose cone of that plane. That was no bird. Something happened to that plane at 40,000 feet, which caused it to drop precipitously in a very, very rapid period of time. More chaos. It's everywhere. It's pervasive. And it is part of our time and season on this planet. And for some people who are invested in control, who want to maintain every single facet of their lives as this kind of control factor, this overriding control factor with everything, they're going to have to really adjust and adapt in a radical fashion. And that goes for everybody, right? The left, the right, the center, we're all part of this. We're all part of this. You know, I was talking with Steve Crimmy about the center. You know, we were talking about the poem "The Second Coming" by Yeats, and he said that the fallacy is that there is no center, that everything is the center, and you know that's a real reorientation of our thinking, and I agree with Stephen on that. So your center has to be redefined, and if you can redefine the center point being everything, then you can get through this time a lot easier. But if you have any kind of investment on control, overriding investment, there's some order is good. I'm not like throwing order out the window. Some order is good. You need order. You know, you got to pay your bills if you want to keep your lights on. I mean, there's a degree of order that needs to take place. But if you are if you're a person that has a demanding relationship with order and control, this is not going to be a time that's going to be easy for you. And I'm sure there are people out there who listen to the show who know people in their lives, their personal lives, who see this. And these people are going to become unhinged. And the potential for that is even greater as we begin to move through whatever it is that we're moving through right now, which is this deconstructive phase, which was brought on by President Chaos, Mr. Sun Uranus conjunction in Gemini, true node in Gemini, all in the 10th house. Tomorrow, I think we're going to talk about, because again, the AI stuff is kind of front and center. And I've been reading about, it's not really like major news, but I've been reading about these religions that have popped up around AI. And I think there's at least 2 with a couple more maybe kind of in the wings. Very interesting stuff. So I may get into that a bit tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see where it takes us. 24 hours. A lot can happen in 24 hours. Knock on wood. All right. So as we move further and deeper into the chaos of deep space, traveling where really planet Earth has never gone before, unless of course we include the Atlantean factor in all this, you know what to do. Use your head to discern what's real and your heart to stay open to what's possible. And become a master surfer of the chaos. You know, big wave it, right? Ride the big wave. That's where the adrenaline is. You think, I've never ridden the big wave, but think about it. Think about those guys for a second. Think about the adrenaline rush that they get. One of my favorite movies of all time, by the way, is a film called Step into Liquid. Because I get a real vicarious rush out of watching these guys do some of the surfing. And, but can you imagine the rush that they get off of riding these monster waves? It's got to be tremendous. Well, that's where we are. You know, we're mavericks. We're at the spiritual mavericks of our time. So don't fret, don't sweat. You know, just stay loose, stay limber, stay agile. Keep your sense of humor about you and do your best every day to deepen your faith. I guarantee you a much better time cruising through this in a way that can be creative versus formally destructive. All right, that's it for today's show. Use your head and serve truly, as much as possible. I'll reaffirm that one more time. This is Robert Phoenix. I'll see you 24 hours from today. Have a great one.